The Democratic National Convention starts Monday in Chicago. Big problems could erupt outside the convention hall. Tens of thousands of protesters are expected to demonstrate against Israel's war on Hamas. And local officials fear the city is not ready to control crowds. CBN's Paul Petit reports from Chicago.
Much of the world watched July 24th as anti-Israel demonstrators in Washington, D.C. raised a Palestinian flag and defaced monuments in protest to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's address to Congress. The next global stage for protesters is in Chicago, host to the Democratic National Convention.
Our police are still handcuffed.
Alderman Raymond Lopez and some fellow city council members don't like that prospect and are not confident it will be stopped.
All I have to think about is the 2020 riots that happened after the murder of George Floyd. Our police department was caught completely off guard by the organized chaos that descended upon our city.
Chicago residents remember those riots.
They let them destroy the buildings. They let them steal whatever they wanted.
I'm scared to death, to tell you the truth. I'm very concerned, very worried. I believe there's going to be professional anarchists coming into the city that are here to do nothing more than wreak havoc upon us.
Most of the convention activity will take place inside the security perimeter of Chicago's United Center. There, Vice President Kamala Harris will rally delegates in person since a virtual roll call vote earlier this month made her the Democratic presidential nominee.
Democrats have gone part of the way down this path with Hillary Clinton before, but this has a very different feel to it. The circumstances are different. I think there's a bit of whiplash. The Democrats went from almost the depths of despair with Biden at the top, even though they liked him, to now such a high energy and optimism about what is possible.
Gonzalez says the key is moving from a focus on Biden's age and ability to concentrating on the opposition.
Now that Harris is at the top of the ticket, it doesn't guarantee that Democrats are going to win, but it allows for a more normal conversation or exchange of ideas in a campaign about who might be too liberal or too conservative or too MAGA or too, it's just more normal than what it was when President Biden was running for re-election.
The convention will also aim to unite Democrats and adopt their liberal party platform.
Abortion is murder!
Access to abortion is going to continue to be a main talking point. Beyond the differences on policy and Vice President Harris having to defend some of what the administration has done, Democrats are going to make the change argument. And so we're going to see Democrats really embrace the contrast between an aging white guy and a woman of color.
Throughout the four-day convention, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, and the Secret Service, now under new leadership, say they'll do what's necessary to keep the city safe, especially in the wake of the attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump.
And let me state this unequivocally. Chicago is ready. We were born ready.
Despite all the planning and training, the Chicago Police Department is still 1,100 officers short of being fully staffed. And with more than 50 organizations planning to protest here during the Democratic National Convention, many feel it's going to be more than they can handle.
They are going to push the envelope. They are going to push it to the limit. If there's a line drawn here, they're going to certainly want to cross that line.
God has love for the whole world.
Chicago for Jesus is ready for the convention as well. The street ministry is known for praying outside abortion clinics and ministering at Muslim rallies.
We believe that the message of Christ and its beauty actually shines greatest in the darkness. So we're going to go that day to preach the gospel and make disciples of those lost and dying protesters.
Jesus wants to change us. He wants to redeem us. He wants to make us new.
While hope is for a peaceful event here, some city officials feel today's atmosphere is eerily similar to Chicago's 1968 Democratic National Convention. Back then, anti-Vietnam protesters clashed with police.
Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now!
And if July's Capitol protest is any indication of things to possibly come to Chicago, the Windy City could be holding its breath.
Because we know we have outside agitators who want to descend on this city, because we have elected officials like some of my colleagues who are encouraging organizations to make it greater than 1968, and because you have a mayor who supports protesters in all their forms, you know, the opportunity for chaos is just exponentially worse than I think it was in 1968.
In Chicago, Paul Petit, CBN News.
Thank you, Paul. Leaders of 4 Muslim groups predict as many as, listen to this, 100,000 protesters will show up at the DNC. More than 150 groups are taking part. The numbers increased since Paul filed the report. Chicago city officials have set up new courts to handle mass arrests, a move already being challenged by the ACLU, and a federal judge recently rejected an appeal to give the protesters wider room in the city. So now you're going to have all these protesters in a confined space. And remember, Chicago, as Paul said, down 1,100 officers. Pray for next week in Chicago in the Windy City.
Pray for Chicago, really.